Addiction is devastating. It is quite literally a disease. It's devastating for the person that's caught in the cycle, and it's also very upsetting for the friends and family involved, especially if those people have never dealt with any type of addiction. They do not understand why their loved one will not stop hurting themselves, and they do it over and over again. It's very difficult to watch, and some people cannot help it. That's what addiction is. It's a festering thought. And look, if you have not dealt with addiction before, you may not know how serious it is. And I mean how seriously painful it is living in a brain that's trapped in a cycle of addiction. Usually what happens is you have some kind of bad or negative thought that distresses you, and then you have this vice. It could be nicotine, alcohol, pills, gambling, anything, and there's this bad thought, this bad feeling that's attacking you, and you've got a solution. It's your vice. For addicts, you push a button and all of the bad feelings go away and everything feels so good. Why would I stop? It's instant, right? And so many people don't understand this. Why do you keep doing this? Why do you keep hurting yourself? But what happens if your addiction isn't hurting yourself? What happens when your addiction, when you feel sad, is killing people and going shopping? Hey guys, welcome back to another week, another Sinister. I'm BOZE. I'm here most Mondays. Well, actually, I'm technically here every Monday, but the show's about to go on a very short hiatus. Every Monday, most Mondays. If you're just getting into watching the show on a regular basis, we're actually going to be gone for about a month or so. I'm taking a little streaming and video hiatus. Listen, if you're new here, I go on breaks sometimes because I'm mentally ill and I need to keep it together, okay? I need to go somewhere sometimes and just put all the eggs back in the sack, okay? Sometimes I just be losing my shit. Now, if you've been watching for a couple years, you know this. I go away twice a year or something like that. Do me a favor, like the video, rate the podcast 5 stars on Spotify. That way we keep the train going. Most of you know, Sinister is a show about female killers. We dive deep into it. I try to figure out everything from their past because I want to know what created this monster. Our sponsor today is Squarespace. And look, Squarespace makes it easy to follow your passions and start your business. Whether you're an artist trying to display your portfolio or creating a product to sell online, Squarespace makes everything so simple and quick, to be honest. Y'all ever try to code a website from scratch? You'll be there for hours, days. Everything from populating text on the website to using their library of designs and customizing it to fit your brand is just all in one space. The way the website is broken up, it is just shockingly easy to make decisions about your designs. If you're somebody like me that's super indecisive, they make it easy to swap colors, whether you know anything about coding, design, building websites. It's just a couple clicks of a button and your website will look picture perfect the way you want it to and the way that you want your business or your craft to be portrayed. And if you're selling products, they have an incredible checkout system for your customers. They offer flexible payment options. They take credit card, Apple Pay, whatever it is, you name it. They are here to make your business flourish. So if you would like to try Squarespace and you can get 10% off of your first website or domain, all you got to do is go to squarespace.com/sinister. I know, it's crazy. It's so easy to remember. It's just squarespace.com/sinister. So when you think of that website that you've always wanted to build or the business you've always wanted to start, all you got to do is type that in and get started today. I'm never comfortable just being like, oh, this person was awful and they were born bad. I need to make it make sense, right? But we're a responsible community and we listen to the beginnings of someone's origin story. And then when they start getting crazy, what do, folks? We turn off our empathy cap. However, this week, I don't know if you're going to have to turn your empathy cap off because this is just fucked up. Dana Armbrust was born December 6th, 1957 in California to Beverly and Russell Armbrust. Her parents were interesting characters. This was the 50s, and her dad, Russell, was a hairdresser. And then her mom was actually like a model and like an MGM starlet. Like she was just very pretty, like just very out, very socialite. They were an interesting couple for the 50s. But one big thing that was dominating their lives was they kept having miscarriages. And guys, miscarriages are devastating, okay? I just feel like for some reason in society we don't talk about that enough, and I just feel like putting that out there is really important, because what ends up happening is, you know, we out here, we get pregnant, we're like, oh my God, I'm gonna have a baby, and then something happens, and nobody like really warns you about the emotions and the grief and the ups and downs of all of that. Like, they're just like, okay, well, try again. And for this couple, they had miscarriage after miscarriage after miscarriage. And it was just really devastating. Dana's mom was named Beverly. And I mean, I just can't imagine Beverly going through like 3 or 4 pregnancies that, you know, didn't follow through. And it's like after the 3rd or 4th one, she's like, okay, do we even get excited at this point? But finally, I feel like almost a sense of relief for her. She gets pregnant and she has her first daughter. So Russell and Beverly had completely lost hope that they were going to be parents. Like, I mean, every trimester just felt like a total trick, right? And finally, she's here. They named her Dana and they took her home on December 6th. This is a very exciting time. And Russell Armbrust is so happy. He's so happy. Imagine a dad bringing home a little baby girl after all the trials and tribulations that they went through. I mean, he's just so happy to have Dana there. Part of the reason that he's so happy to have Dana there is because Beverly is a little baddie. She's a little 50s hottie, but she's kind of crazy. She's difficult to deal with, okay? Beverly is very difficult to deal with. She, constantly changes her mind in what seems like almost a malicious way. She's very capricious. She is quick to anger, and the anger would often seem kind of manipulative. He just can't always read her right. But remember, after she had Dana, you know, the postpartum and the responsibility hit, and she just became a nightmare. Not only was she tormenting Russell in the home, but now she started messing with Dana. And Dana is only like 1 or 2 years old. And things were kind of bad before the pregnancy, but just for some reason, she absolutely spiraled afterwards, and Russell couldn't take it. He divorced her only 2 years after they had Dana. So they divorced, and Russell is like, I got to get out of here. I'll see y'all later. And Dana is now stuck with Miss Beverly. Beverly has gotten even more quick to anger, more vain, more controlling. She was extremely controlling of Dana. She just wanted to exercise power in every area of her life. She made it very clear to this child that she owned her and she was in control of her. And this forced a very, very young Dana to start rebelling at a young age. In fact, a forensic psychologist that evaluated her later said that she would seek out dangerous and risky behavior even as a toddler. Beverly's controlling abuse towards Dana is actually really interesting because she wouldn't really necessarily be protective of Dana in a way of like, I'm your mother, I want to make sure you're okay. She just was controlling in a sense of like, no, don't do that. Judgment, being told no, constant judgment. But then Dana also had this freedom where Beverly didn't care what she did or like what happened to her really. So Dana ends up developing this really, really, really weird habit to deal with her mom as a toddler, okay? I need you to imagine like a 7-year-old. The 7-year-old goes to talk to their mom and, I don't know, say something that 7-year-olds say. And her mom, Beverly, is just very flippant and ignoring her and just casually like, no, absolutely not. It's not up for discussion. No. Why are you doing this? Why are you whatever? Just whatever the judgment is. And then what Dana would do, she would get frustrated by this tiff with her mom. And I'm sure they were much more serious than that, but I don't have the information on that. So I can't go deeper than what I heard from the forensic psychologist. But she was very controlling and would tell her no. And so Dana would get frustrated. And then she would go steal money from her mom, like either cash or a card. She would steal money from her mom and then go to the candy store and buy everything. Exactly where a 7-year-old would be, the candy store. But that's what she would do. She would get upset and then she would say, basically in her little toddler brain, I don't deserve this. I'm going to go reward myself with shopping. And that's what she would do. She would go to the candy store and get all of this candy, and then she would feel a little bit better. So this was a pretty constant pattern in Dana's life. She would get into a fight with her mom. It would piss her off. Maybe she didn't fight back too much. Maybe it was a big war. The forensic psychologist did not indicate at all that there was a lot of arguing and friction between Dana and her mom. It almost just seemed like Dana was under complete control and didn't contest it much, but she was very, very angry about it. That's what it seems like. So Dana gets a bit older and she's having some trouble in school. She is just not doing well academically, but also she still has that mean streak. She still has that temper, but now she can occasionally get violent with other people in school and as well as at home. I think Dana kind of got a pass from the school on her violence. Like she was not expelled or anything like that because she was kind of pretty. Like she could have been a cool girl. You know, she had this blonde hair that was kind of flipped out. She had these pretty blue eyes. Like she was just very stereotypically pretty, but for some reason she didn't fit in. Like she looked like she could have been a popular girl, but those girls, they were like, oh my God, she's kind of fucking. She was not in the group. She actually didn't have a group. So she's actually even more awkward because she looks like this person that so many people, you know, in the 70s would gravitate towards, like just very stereotypically pretty. But nobody gets near Dana. And I think that's a really big indicator of either her being very socially awkward, not well socialized, or somebody that people didn't want to have a personal relationship with. She actually even excelled in sports, so she was involved in lots of extracurricular activities, but still never made any friends along the way. So things in Dana's life are not, you know, particularly exciting. However, things end up taking a turn for the worst when her mom, Beverly, gets a diagnosis of breast cancer. And not only is this a difficult time dealing with her diagnosis, but she wants Dana to take care of her. And Dana's incredibly resentful about this. She's getting older, really dealing with a lot of teenage angst, and already kind of hates her mom. And now she's got a dote on her during her developmental years. But there's also a sadness about it because her mother could die. Despite their issues, Dana took care of her and learned that she actually really enjoyed nursing. She wanted to help people and take care of them. And she did her best, but ultimately her mother passed away about 2.5 years later. So now Dana is 17 years old and she is trying to take care of herself. It seemed like she was managing it all until her mom died and she just kind of snapped. Now, remember I said that she was kind of doing dangerous and risky things when she was a toddler? Well, she kind of developed a taste for that because by the time she was 17, she wanted all the smoke. She would go skydiving just to get a little bit of a high. And skydiving, that's the tame stuff. That's the regulated stuff. I mean, she had an unhealthy taste for danger. But on top of that, she's also doing the regular stuff. She's doing amphetamines. She's having a lot of sex. She's on this total roller coaster that she's built, so much so that when she's 17 years old, she actually ends up getting pregnant. Now, she doesn't keep the baby, but she ends up meeting the love of her life through this experience, and it's a guy named Tom Gray. They got married in 1987, and that's when she became Dana Gray. Now, this is Dana's dream, okay? Tom and Dana, they're together for quite a while, and she holds it together. Dana gets a job in nursing. I think she's like an office assistant. She's holding it down, but Tom is doing his big one. Tom is building a life for them. And I mean, Dana jumps in and helps, manage these businesses. They end up having multiple businesses. Tom is doing really well financially. Dana honestly probably doesn't have to work, but they're a team. And she still does, she keeps her 9 to 5. They're bringing home the bacon. Remember, I said Dana loved shopping. She loved luxury. I mean, it started with the candy, but when she became a teenager, oh yeah, she likes nice clothes. She likes jewelry. She likes all of it. So Tom, get this, by the time they were deep in their relationship, the couple had 3 cars, a plane, and it was an ultralight plane, but it's still a plane, okay? A plane, several boats and motorboats, a house, and lots of sophisticated silk printing equipment. Like I said, they had multiple businesses, one of which was doing silk printing. They had just fully expanded and the money was rolling in. Dana was happy because material things are what give her comfort. Like, she can feel safe here. However, it is difficult to make money. It's easy to spend money, especially for Dana. Even though they were so financially successful, Dana could not stop spending the money and they were completely financially underwater. She was in extreme credit card debt. This wasn't one of those scenarios where the husband doesn't know and the wife is trying to hide it all. Tom kind of knew, slowly caught on, and then fully saw how in debt they were and how she was just spending all of their money. Tom was not dealing with this. Tom said, I have worked too hard for this. And he left her. He completely left her. So she is alone with this credit card debt now. She doesn't have her material possessions, which, mind you, she had been shopping freely on Tom's dime for, the last decade. So her brain has been accustomed to shopping since she was a child. And then now it's still that way because she's reinforced that as a pattern. And, tying this back to what I was saying in the very beginning, this is like textbook addiction. She is hurting herself. She's destroying her marriage. She's destroying her husband's finances. And she knows this, but she simply cannot stop. When she feels, addiction, the thoughts that you have for whatever your vice is, it can just pop up at any point. If the addiction's really bad, you can just be constantly thinking about the thing. Or sometimes feelings for your vice come up when you have some sort of negative feeling. So let's say Dana was, at work one day and she gets an email from her boss that is like reprimanding her, saying that she did something wrong, and it makes her feel embarrassed. It makes her feel small. She just feels like, oh my God, this is so awful. Her brain's going to be like, shop. You need to shop. It'll make you feel better. Go shop. You should shop. And like, even if she fights it, like her brain would be like, no, you should shop. That's the thing that you do to make yourself feel better. Shop. And she'll just keep thinking this until she goes and does it, right? So that's a pattern that she very clearly was living in because she devastated the finances to the point that he left. Leaving her was a long time coming, but the decision came very, very quickly. After Tom left her, this is totally the point where her addiction for money and shopping, and then also all of these old resentful feelings of her mother, who's now deceased, start to take over. Now let's zoom out a little bit. We are in a place called Canyon Lake. It's in California. This is where Dana and a few of her family members live. Canyon Lake is kind of quiet, but also all of the residents kind of look out for each other. They all know each other. They're all older. They've been here for a while. So when an 87-year-old woman turns up missing, everyone's just kind of got question marks over their head. Norma Davis was 87 years old, and she lived in a quiet, gated community. But her friend Alice hadn't heard from her in a couple of days, so she decided to go check on her. Now, Norma is 87 years old, but she was in good health, so Alice didn't expect to find anything out of the normal, but she couldn't find her. So, of course, she's going to go check in. When Alice got to her house and pushed on the door a little bit, it opened on its own. It was already ajar. She goes inside and she sees Norma sitting like in a chair. It looks like she's like sleeping and her feet are kind of covered by this blanket. But when Alice gets closer, she sees that there is blood everywhere. Norma had been stabbed once in the neck and then once in her chest. Alice is completely flabbergasted. She did not expect to see anything. Nonetheless, I mean, if anything, if Norma was not doing okay, maybe it could have been her age. But this was very clearly a murder, and it was an incredibly violent way for an elderly woman to go. Now, the 2 stab wounds are what Alice noticed, but the reality of it is actually so much worse. The autopsy indicates that there were 11 stab wounds. And when the police got to the scene, they saw that Norma hadn't just been stabbed in the neck. Somebody had attempted to behead her. They could also tell that they had strangled her prior to her death. And it was also odd because nothing was missing from the home. Like, there were no obvious items of like value or anything that were missing. It just seemed like a random violent attack on this elderly woman that was just in her home. And then another elderly woman died in the community in the same way. Now, Norma had been murdered on February 18th, and the police are still trying to figure it out. But now a lady named June Roberts has been murdered. It's February 28th, only 10 days later. Once again, June also lived in a gated community. It was like around an area where there was a golf course. So she was set to celebrate her 66th birthday on this day. Like, her family was going to see her. There was a whole plan, everything. And no one hears from her. Now, June lived by herself. She was a widow that lived in a mobile home. And get this, the mobile home was a few houses down from her daughter. Her daughter is the stepmother of Dana Gray because her daughter married Russell Armbrust, the husband that left a while ago. He divorced Beverly because she was just like going off the deep end. Russell remarried this other woman. And now I know that's a little complicated, but that's integral to the story, okay? So when she didn't answer her phone on her birthday, a couple of people went to check on her. Immediately, June was very well loved. It was concerning right away because they saw that her keys were left on a golf cart. And then when they went inside, they found June laid out with bruises all over her body. Horrible bruises. I mean, these are just full-on hematomas everywhere. So just like Norma, her friends are shocked. No one expects to find an elderly woman that has been violently beaten on her birthday in their home. They just call the police and let them come and process the scene. So the police come in and they find out that she was actually beaten with a heavy glass wine decanter. And then when the autopsy comes back, they realize that she had been strangled with a telephone cord that had been grabbed off of the wall. So to me, this is what's called like a textbook, quote, disorganized crime. When there's an organized crime, it means that somebody takes items like they've planned this murder, they've brought a knife from home, they've purchased a bag from Walmart, and they're going to do this, like they've organized and planned the murder. A disorganized murder means that somebody just walked into a place and grabbed whatever objects were nearby. And so this is one way that police are able to profile different types of killers. Usually somebody that's committing a disorganized crime has done this before, and they're doing it for personal reasons. So the detectives are trying to piece this together, and they feel like June had to have known her killer, kind of similar to Norma. But in both cases, there was no motive. Like, why is anybody killing old ladies? So the police need help. They are absolutely baffled, and they call on the community. Like I said, it's a very tight-knit community. It's like somebody's got to know something, or somebody's got to think something to figure out how these two ladies are connected. They hold this meeting, but really what they find is it's just a bunch of scared old people that want answers. They don't have any information. In fact, some of the old people stood up and said, like, I just got a gun because I'm not dealing. And I get it. You know, if you find out that old people are getting killed in their home and it's 10 days apart in the same city, yeah. So this meeting doesn't really bring about any new information, but what the residents and the police kind of come to is that whoever murdered these women seemed to be allowed to enter their homes. So this either meant that the person knew them, or maybe this was some kind of worker or somebody that could just gain access somehow. So this gives them some direction, but still, the police cannot find any leads until another woman is almost murdered. And she goes to the police and she starts talking right away. So on March 10th, 1994, just about another 10 days after the last murder, This woman named Dorinda Hawkins is working at this antique and framing shop when this, mid-40s, pretty blonde lady walks in. The lady's, she's only in there for, a minute or two. She's looking around, and Dorinda comes up to try to help her. And the lady pulls out a rope and puts it around her neck. And Dorinda doesn't see the rope. She's not expecting this, but, she said later she could feel this itching and this burning around her neck. This lady had taken a nylon rope around her neck and just started strangling her out of nowhere. And she pulls the rope and then pushes Dorinda down on the ground, pushing her foot into Dorinda's head, the back of it, while pulling the rope tightly on her neck. And Dorinda can still kind of speak, and she's saying, please, like, why are you doing this? Like, what is going on? And the voice is very calm, and the lady says, shh, relax, relax. She's telling her to relax while she's killing her. And she says, relax, I'm not here for money. I don't want any money. Just relax. And she continues to strangle her. Dorinda said later that she knew this woman intended to kill her. So she's fighting back as best she can, but she's in a completely submissive position. She gets a little headway. The two are kind of moving across the floor. She's trying to get out of this rope, but ultimately the lady ends up strangling her to the point that she passes out. She didn't kill her, or it's unclear whether she thought she did, but Dorinda passes out and the woman leaves. So she miraculously survives the attack. And she wakes up to a phone ringing. The phone's going and she realizes, like, holy shit, I'm alive. She misses that call but hops right up and calls the police for help. They come in and take a statement, and what they hear shocks them. This was the third attempt in 1 month to kill an older woman, and they're just now finding out that their main suspect is a 40-year-old blonde woman. She said to the newspaper, quote, I don't think she was that much stronger than me. But she had done this before. She knew what she was doing. She came here to kill somebody. I have no doubt in my mind that she left me for dead. So with her description, police were able to draw up a composite sketch, and they gave it to the newspapers. And the newspapers gave them back some names. They took those names, got photos, and then put them together in a lineup for Dorinda. And that's when she points out, matter-of-factly, Dana Gray. She picked her face out and said, without a doubt, it was her. So I told you about Dana in the beginning of this, but where is she while all of this is happening? Because look, y'all know, what does Dana like to do? She likes to take amphetamines and go shopping, which that sounds horrible, by the way. Can you imagine taking a 40-gram dosage of Adderall or Vyvanse and then going shopping? Would you even buy anything that you liked? So Dana had actually moved out of Canyon Lake, and she was living in a mobile home with a boyfriend of hers for about 6 months prior to all of this happening. It wasn't until a major clue came through. The second victim's family member placed a call with some pertinent information. June's family member called and said that in the hours after her murder, her credit card had been used. $164 for an eyebrow wax and a perm. The person also bought a black suede jacket and several pairs of cowboy boots for $511. Then a pair of diamond earrings for $161. And also a children's toy helicopter. Now, you would have thought that when Dorinda picked Dana out of the lineup, all eyes would have been on her. But, they weren't convinced still. Of course, they can't arrest somebody just from a composite sketch. But they kind of started to, connect the dots after this tip comes in about the credit cards. Because it's like, okay, wait, she was already dead. This person's shopping. They're buying women's clothes and getting a perm and an eyebrow. This is a woman. This coincides with Dorinda's story after she survived. But that would make this woman a serial killer. And is she? And to top it all off, when the police really dug into it, which they should have been doing weeks ago, it was very obvious that Dana knew Norma and June, the two women that had been killed. In fact, at one point, Dana had gone over to June's house to borrow a book from her before, a vitamin book. So she knew her. They were connected by family in a sense. Now, March 16th is a very important day because the police had already started trailing her, like following her when they left her house, doing a little surveillance on her, collecting information, because they're like, there's no way that this lady is a serial killer that's going shopping after she kills people. Like, that would just be insane. So they do their due diligence and they're trying to like check in. But finally, on March 16th, they have enough information that they are prepared to arrest Dana Gray. And she comes home at 6 p.m. and she's got these bags with her. She's just gone shopping again. On this particular day, the police did not do a great job of tailing Dana because just moments before they came to arrest her at 6 p.m., she was just in the home of a woman named Dora Beebe. She was an 87-year-old elderly woman who lived alone in Sun City, and her greatest fear was being attacked in her own home. That's what her family said. She was terrified of violence happening to her inside of her own home. And on this particular day, a woman pulled up in front of her house that she didn't know. This was a nice, older, mid-40s lady with blonde hair. And she called out from the car window. She said, I need some help with directions. Can you help me? And Dora said, sure. Come on in. And she let her in. And of course, the woman that she had just let in was Dana Gray. Later on, Dora's daughter would call her to check in because she was concerned about the elderly people that were being murdered in their own home, and she hadn't spoken to her mother in hours. I also just want to point out, these ladies, they were very loved. They were very cared about. Every single person went looking for them in a matter of hours or like a day. It was a small community where people were just always checking in. So Dora's daughter went to her house when her mother was not answering, and she found her, just like June, just like Norma, beaten in her own home, just bruises all over her body. Her skull had been essentially battered, and she had been left to die, 87 years old. Just 20 minutes before they arrested Dana Gray, she had killed Dora. If they had moved just a little bit faster, she would have been alive. She would have been alive. And like I said before, this was one of her greatest fears. Her daughter, Julia, told the reporters this was her one terror. It was becoming a victim of violence in her own home. After her arrest, police raided Dana's apartment and they said it looked like a department store. Get this, guys. They found a stolen credit. Okay, so Dana had just stolen a credit card from Dora and gone on her final shopping spree. But inside of the home, they found jewelry, food, empty liquor bottles, a ski mask, a purse with nearly $2,000 in the washing machine, and many, many, many items of luxury clothing with the tags still attached. She wasn't even wearing them. She was just buying, just like a 7-year-old in the candy shop all over again. She was also collecting keys from her victims as well. She had keys that she had stolen from June. She also had Jean's bank book, her checkbook, and she had stolen the keys to the antique shop from Dorinda as well, and they found all of this in the home. When Dana was arrested, she admitted to the police that she had, quote, this overwhelming need to shop. That's how she would cope with her mother, controlling her or upsetting her. It was by shopping. And it seemed as though Dana was taking out her rage on her now deceased mother through these elderly women and then replicating a pattern of shopping. Dana was also taking advantage of the fact that she had a Canyon Lakes residence sticker, even though she didn't live there anymore. And so as a resident, she could easily just get into gated communities and other places and roam around freely as an unsuspecting serial killer. She had an incredible amount of self-pity and confusion in her interview. It was very interesting to see. It was almost as though she knew what she was doing was bad. Horrifying, actually. But it was such an addiction and such a compulsion that she just didn't care to stop. So Dana originally tried to plead insanity, and this just delayed the trial for 4 years because she just very clearly was not insane to the point that she shouldn't be held accountable for her actions. But after this went on for quite a while, she turned over a leaf, or maybe just thought that it would be better for her in the legal system, and she ended up pleading guilty. This is pretty serious because she is facing triple homicides and an attempted murder. By pleading guilty, she would not be given the death penalty. Remember, we're in California. They will hand it down just as quickly as Texas. But because she had pled guilty to the robberies and actually only 2 of the murders, she did not take accountability for Norma. She instead was just given life in prison. Now, the DA actually made this deal for her, and part of the reason why they were willing to make a deal for her to just plead guilty and get it over with, quote unquote, was because they said that she had no prior criminal record. That's actually what she even said in her interrogation. But does it matter when you murder multiple innocent people and you would have kept going? Like, does it? I mean, Dana will be behind bars, but there is something that just infuriates me about her getting a plea deal. So finally, on October 16th, 1998, 4.5 years after the murders, she was finally sentenced. And then when Dana addressed the public, she said, quote, "My life and my career have been focused on healing. It has strayed so far from that goal. It was so out of character. I'm sorry, and I know these words will never be enough. I will live with this for the rest of my life." She expressed regret to the judge, and she actually accepted a bit of responsibility. But to me, that doesn't really take the edge off. Even though she seemed to take a little bit of accountability in the courtroom, she then began to plead to the judge by saying this was actually her doctor's fault because they didn't properly administer her antidepressant medication. And that's when they kind of cut her off and nobody was buying it. So, take it with a grain of salt if you actually believe that Dana Gray is remorseful. You can tell by the interrogation that in Dana's brain, she is still just a 7-year-old kid in a candy shop that's mad at her mom. But when you look at the carnage and the destruction and the fear that she caused in this community, Dana is a real, true serial killer. After her sentencing, she received life without parole, and she is incarcerated in the California Women's Prison in Chowchilla, California. You know who else I think is there? I'm going to look. I think they are. I was right. It's crazy that I've done so many cases at this point that I actually remember what correctional facility people are at. In a previous episode of Sinister, we talked about Manling Williams. She is also at the same facility. Even in prison, Dana Gray is still materialistic. She demands a mirror for her makeup, needs a chiropractor at all times, and requests a vegetarian diet. Dana Gray's sister-in-law, Jeannie Ward, said Dana's compulsion to spend is, quote, "not even normal greedy. Everything with Dana has been sacrificed to the god of narcissism. She has rejected gifts from her friends and family for being too cheap. She will serve the rest of her days in prison."